It's story time on the GymCrafter podcast. After many, many requests, you're finally going to hear the story of how I bought count them two, BowFlex machines. Welcome to the GymCrafter podcast. My name's Tim. I'm the head gym nerd here at GymCrafter.com, the website that I built to help ordinary folks build home and garage gyms that they absolutely love. And I've got a fun episode for you guys today. Today we're going to talk about 7 of the worst mistakes I've made while trying to build a home gym, so that hopefully my idiocy helps you eliminate dumb decisions of your own. And I've got a fun story, or maybe not so fun story, that goes along with each of these lessons, so you can hear all of the mistakes I made, how much money it cost me, all that kind of fun stuff in journeying to a gym that I actually kind of like right now. And speaking of the gym that I kind of like right now, I do want to do an equipment update for you. And I've still got the Major Fitness and the RipFit stuff here. As I've committed to everybody, I'm going to use this stuff for a bunch of months before I make my final verdict. And actually, I've got kind of a weird change of heart that I wasn't expecting to have. So over here, I've got the Major Fitness leg press hack squat machine, and I was all prepared a couple weeks ago to just make an early video and say absolutely don't buy this thing. There's a safety issue on it that basically the safety bars that move up and down, when they're up, you can hit them and they just flip down even if there's weight on it, which would cause the carriage to come down. And the reason for that is at the bottom, not to get too detailed, there's this little spring and there's another safety at the bottom that needs to engage, and the weight needs to engage it. And I didn't want to recommend somebody buy something that could cut them in half, which probably a bad idea, right? Well, lo and behold, after using it for a couple of months, the little springs down below have broken in and the safety's engaged no problem now. There's no longer the issue of cutting yourself in half, which is a horrible side effect from a badly designed product, right? But I actually really like it. I wasn't expecting to be able to say that because I really don't like some of the other stuff that's from them in my gym. Actually, I don't like anything else in my gym that's from them right now. Maybe that'll change over the next couple months like I did with the leg press, but the leg press isn't bad. So I like having one in the gym. I like being able to load up a bunch of weight on it. It's much more weight than I can stress my legs with on that than I can with the squat, even using a Smith machine. So if you're looking at a leg press, it's not a bad option. There's other ones that are around the same price that are probably better, but I don't hate it, which is weird saying that out loud. So that's the gym update for right now. That's where we're sitting. I don't want to bore you with that too much. I want to get into story time. And like I said, I've got 7 things that I've done that are dumb decisions that I made when building my gym that hopefully if I share my stupidity with you guys, you can avoid those decisions yourself. And when I first wrote GymCrafter.com, that was actually my about page. It was literally, I'm making all these stupid decisions building my gym. Let me write them down so that you guys don't have to. So in keeping with that and how I started GymCrafter, and the spirit of how I started GymCrafter, let's dig into these stories. And a good YouTuber would make you wait till the end for the BowFlex stories, but I'm not going to do that. Let's go ahead and start with the BowFlex stories. For those of you who don't know what a BowFlex is, which there probably might be possible, BowFlex was a company that came out late 80s. I mean, they've probably been around since the 70s, to be honest, but they came out with this product in the 80s and 90s, and it was an all-in-one trainer with a bench built in that was on an incline. At least mine was only on an incline. I think you could put it down a little bit. And then it had all these rods. They were called power rods, right? Cool name. Get some power rods in your house. And what you did was you hooked these cables on the end of the power rods, and the more power rods you hooked the end of the cables on, when you pushed or pulled the cables, the power rods bent over, and that's where your resistance came from. It was kind of weird. These things were flopping around all over the place up there, but boy, they sold a lot of them. And how they sold a lot of them was in the 80s and 90s, there were these things called infomercials, and you youngins, I don't think you know the joy of infomercials right now because you can watch other stuff on YouTube if you want to. But there was a time where you had to watch whatever was on your TV, even if you had cable, even if you're one of the, I remember in the 80s when cable actually came around and there were a few houses on the block that got cable and you're like, oh my God, you have more than 6 channels? That's amazing. But even the folks who had cable, the problem with having so many channels is there wasn't enough programming to put on those channels. So every night at about 10 or 11 o'clock at night and running all through the night, they had infomercials and they sold all kinds of crazy stuff. They sold kitchen rotisserie units for your chicken. They sold pocket fishermen. They sold all kinds of, Ron Popeil. If you guys remember Ron Popeil, you know what I'm talking about. But BowFlex was one of these infomercials. And they had 2 very attractive models, a man and a woman, who probably didn't work out on BowFlex at all, now that I realize. But back then I didn't know that. I was a dumb kid. And I'm like, wow, well, if you can build a body with that, I need one. The interesting thing about this was this is in the early 90s. So this is when I was in college, or just right after I'd gotten out of college. Now, I didn't get out of college. I drank my way out of college. There's a huge difference there. But ironically enough, I would come home from the bar and guess what would be on TV? Infomercials. And I gotta tell you, alcohol and infomercials that are written by professionals who know how to sell stuff don't go well together. And when you add to that, this is also about the time when they started putting payment plans and everything. You didn't need a credit card. You could just sign up for 192,000 equal payments of $59.99 a month, and you too can have this body by having a BowFlex in your garage. So the first BowFlex I bought was bought under the influence of substances. Let's just put it that way. And I ended up with this BowFlex. I ended up stuck with these payments forever. I never used it. I really didn't. I used it a couple of times. I stuck it in the corner of my bedroom. I really don't know what I was thinking. I wasn't motivated to work out. I was motivated to drink. I was not in any position in my life to get fit, to stay fit, to work on, and I definitely wasn't self-motivated. So the fate of the first BowFlex was I just sold it, pocketed the money, and didn't pay for it. I wasn't a very good person at that point in my life, but I pocketed the money. They sent me to collections, which they could get in line because at that point in my life, I was in collections for a lot of things, including a bunch of credit cards that they just gave me as a college student, which they shouldn't have. But anyway, so that's the fate of the first BowFlex, right? A couple of years later, we'll fast forward, and I'm watching an infomercial late at night. I had been drinking, but not as much, not near as much. So I have no excuse. But at that point in my life, I had a job, I was a somewhat responsible person, I was a better person, I had improved my credit a little bit, they were still offering the payments, and I thought, you know what, I'm getting my life in shape all these other ways, I should probably get my body in shape, man, that's probably the right decision to do, let me get this BowFlex because this time I'll use it. And the mistake that the lesson that I learned from this, and the lesson that I hope everybody else learns from this is, and I see this all the time, not with BowFlex, but just with other stuff. A lot of people join a gym or they buy a bunch of stuff for their home gym because they think if they have the stuff, if they have the membership, that they'll work out. And I've got news for you. Having the thing isn't going to make you use the thing, whether it's a membership, whether it's a BowFlex, whether it's a squat rack, whether it's an all-in-one Major Fitness B52 trainer, which I've talked to a few people recently who have bought them, who have literally said, well, I figured if I had this thing in my house where I could do all these exercises that I would actually start training. And I said, how's that going? And they said, I've got clothes hanging on it right now, right? So fitness equipment is either really useful or they're the world's most expensive clothes hangers. And I think probably all of us have owned at least one of those. I know I hung clothes on my BowFlexes too. But that's the lesson from that, and I think back on that all the time, is buying the thing isn't going to make me use it. One of the best advantages to building a home gym, and the last episode, if you haven't listened to that, go back and check it out. I talk about building a home gym a piece at a time, but that's one of the huge benefits of building the gym a piece at a time. In that episode, I recommend that you start with a small, inexpensive implement, and one of the biggest benefits of doing that is it allows you to build the habit of training without having spent a ton of money. So if you're in a stage of your life where really training isn't gonna happen like I was, especially for that first BowFlex, man, starting small and not something big and understanding that you got to build the habit first. Don't buy the big thing. Don't buy a BowFlex, and definitely don't buy two. I ended up paying off the second one, and lo and behold, BowFlexes, when that second one came around, have virtually no resale value. I think I sold it for $100, and I had to help the guy carry it down to his pickup truck. But interesting experience. Some of my first self-purchase home gym equipment. My first home gym stuff was when I was 12 or 13. I got a weight bench for Christmas from my parents. But as far as when I'm on my own, the BowFlexes were probably the first ones, and lesson learned, not gonna buy a third one. The second lesson or mistake was also in relation to those BowFlexes, and I kind of touched on it already, and that was buying them on credit. I mentioned this in the last episode, but we train and we work out and we want to improve our health to be more healthy, right? To live longer, to be more capable. But out of all the things that could be bad for you, stress is pretty bad for you. And there are a few things that will stress you out more than debt. And even though 30 bucks a month here and 40 bucks a month here doesn't sound like a lot. I know some guys right now who have $25,000 credit card bills because they decided they want to run out and buy an entire Rogue gym. And while every single one of them likes their gym and loves it, every single one of them regrets spending that much up front on their gym. They could have bought less expensive stuff. They could have bought it a piece at a time, but all of them are sweating these credit card bills. I know one even had to kind of slim down his vacation this year because he's like, I can't put that much more on the credit card. So another lesson I learned with the BowFlex stuff, and really from that period of time in my life, like I mentioned, this was a time when I went to U of I in 1990, probably 89 or 90. I graduated high school in 89, but you would go to like that first day on the quad where they have all the clubs and stuff. Every other table, and I don't know if it's still this way or not. Let me know in the comments if you've got kids in school or if you're in school, if it's still this way. But literally every other table was like, you want a credit card? You want a credit card? You want a credit card? And I was like, yeah, I want a credit card. Yeah, I want that credit card too. I think I had 4 or 5 credit cards at the end of that day. And boy, I got myself in some serious trouble that way. So I really learned at that time to just not have debt. I'm really proud that I don't have debt at this point except for my house and a little bit on my car. And I would never buy any of this stuff on credit. So don't want to, make you feel bad if that's how you run your life. I don't want to tell you how to run your life, but that's another lesson. That's the second lesson I want to talk about today is if you can, just buy stuff with cash. Put it off, save some money every month. My parents were like on the Dave Ramsey envelope system before Dave Ramsey was even a thing. So I grew up using that system. So anyway, you guys get the point. It's not a funny story, but it is a story, and it is the second lesson for today. The third mistake that I made was when I started getting serious about building a home gym. And this is right before I built GymCrafter, the site. And actually one of the big reasons that I built the site in the first place is when I first started looking, I had these dreams of an all Rogue fitness gym. And I know a lot of you guys can relate to that. I know a lot of you guys have all Rogue gyms. It's what you aspired to. It's what you wanted to buy. It's like my brother always wanted a Corvette ever since he was a little kid. And I remember when he finally bought one, he was just thrilled, right? And I know a lot of you guys out there are the same way with Rogue. I was that way as well. I know most of you who follow me know that I don't own much Rogue at this point. And the reason for that was, when I started adding up the price, I was like, oh, I guess I don't want a Rogue gym because A, I'm not charging it, right? And B, when I started doing some comparison shopping, all of a sudden I started finding out, I'm like, I could buy a Rogue rack for $3,000, or I could buy this Titan rack, which it's not as pretty, definitely not as pretty, showed up with shipping damage, really ugly welds, but did the same thing for like 800 bucks. And that's what I bought. I bought a Titan X3 rack. And every single thing that I bought for my gym, number one on my list was a Rogue. Honest to God, number one on my list was an Ohio Power Bar, a Rogue Monster rack, like their adjustable bench at the time, like everything I wanted from them. I wanted to be able to wear the shirt, right? I wanted to be able to wear the Rogue shirt that says, ask me about my Rogue gym. That's what I wanted. And every single piece I looked at, I'm like, well, wait a minute. It looks to me like the Fringe Sport bumpers are better and less expensive. It looks to me like I bought an American barbell bar as my first nice bar that was less expensive than the Rogue Ohio Power Bar and is better in my opinion. And I just kept finding that. That's actually a big part of the reason why I started doing GymCrafter was I said, wait a minute. Everybody that I look at in articles says that Rogue's the best, but I keep finding that yes, they're awesome, but I can get as good or better for less money in other people. Now, this isn't to bag on Rogue. Rogue makes some amazing stuff. I guarantee you that if I had had the money at that point, I would have bought an all Rogue gym. I would be sitting right now in an all Rogue gym, and I would be happy that I did it. So I don't want to bag on them. I'm not knocking them at all. I'm just using it as an example from my life. And I see people do this all the time. They want an all X gym, or they get hooked on a certain brand name of something. And what I would recommend is to look at what the functions and the specs and the usability and the customer reviews are of stuff before you buy something just based on the name. Because just based on the name, you're not always going to get the best for your money, right? So hopefully that makes sense. Again, I'm not trying to bag on Rogue. I could probably tell the same story and change that name to a number of different companies out there. I know for a while I also really wanted a Sorinex rack, and then Ghost, when Ghost came along, man, that stuff was amazing and stupid expensive. But whew, I wanted a Ghost combo rack so bad. They were so cool, but I couldn't spend the thousands of dollars on it. So again, looking at just the name brand, just be careful. And something to kind of point out, and this isn't really the way anymore, but it kind of is. Way back in the day when I was building my gym, one of the reasons that I think that I made that list that I wanted an all Rogue gym was Rogue and Amazon were the only affiliate programs out there. For those of you guys who don't know how this garage gym review game works, basically I tell you about products. If you think that I have helped you enough and that my reviews have helped you enough to buy the product, and you click through the links below, which by the way, there are some affiliate links below. If you use those, I make a small commission. You don't pay anything extra. That's how I make my living, and it allows me to continue to buy more stuff, to shoot more videos on. Most of us in the garage gym space will tell you that. But back in the day, Rogue and Amazon were the only ones that you could do that with. So you would go on and Google best squat rack, and literally you'd say the 27,000 best squat racks, which is how some of the articles still are that way, right? Like the 500 best this. They were all Amazon Rogue, Amazon Rogue, Amazon Rogue, Amazon Rogue. And the Amazon was clearly garbage, still is. And then the Rogue was like, well, geez, I guess I should buy a Rogue. Every article says to buy Rogue. So stay. But in the end, be a little wary of those reviews too. That's not one of my points, but that's something else. As much as I love for you to trust everything that I say, don't. Look at what Gluck has to say. Look at what Coop has to say. Look at what Basement Brandon has to say. Look at what a bunch of different YouTubers have to say. Kurt from the Kurt Locker has some great reviews. Look at what Coach Carp is using. Look at what Jonathan over at No Fate 24/7. I could go on and on. Look at what John over at Garage Gym Life is doing. There's enough of us out there where if you watch a few of our videos, you're going to get a good sense for what's good or not. And again, don't get so hung up on a brand name and get more hung up on what's going to do what you need it to do. One of the early mistakes, and this is the fourth one we'll talk about today, is I tend to buy stuff that looks cool, and I just get swayed. If it looks cool, my brain stops working. I'm like, I want that one. Pretty colors, whatever it happens to be. That's how I ended up with all 4 Onnit Primal Bells. The Primal Bells, if you don't know, monkeys are my jam. I love some monkeys. I can go to the Brookfield Zoo here in Chicago and spend all day in the ape house. It's awesome. I love it. And when I saw that there were kettlebells shaped like different monkey heads, there's a gorilla and an orangutan and a chimp and a howler monkey. I bought all of them eventually when I first built my gym. And they look cool. They're sitting right there. They're never going to leave my gym. They are a great piece of gym decor, and I never use them. I still do swings with the gorilla sometimes because swings doesn't really matter how the thing is shaped. But trying to rack those things, you got like orangutan eyebrows poking into your arm, and they're not balanced as well. All the advertising material says that they're perfectly balanced. They're not. They're okay. And they're the bells that Joe Rogan uses too. You'll see him using those gorillas all the time. But I bought things based on what they looked like and not on how they function. I think a lot of people are buying a lot of like the Major Fitness rack that I talk about a lot. A lot of people buy that because it looks cool. There's a lot of slickly produced commercials. It looks really neat. It's black, it's silver, it's well designed as far as how the aesthetics go. So people buy stuff based on how it looks. And I made that mistake a bunch of times. I have several things with Onnit monkeys printed on them because I wanted the monkeys. Not because the piece of gear was all that great. Some of it's good, some of it's not. But I see people make that mistake all the time. They'll buy, for example, bumper plates are a good example. I see people buy bumper plates based on how they look and not based on how they function. In fact, I recommend Fringe Sport bumper plates all the time because I genuinely believe that Fringe Sport makes the best bumper plates that are out there. Does that mean that they're the only good ones? No, but I think they're the best, so I recommend them. But I see people all the time, they're like, oh, well, this company has this cool confetti color, and this one company has this cool this color, and this company has this design, and this. And it's like, cool, you're buying stuff based on looks, and then they get a bumper plate that smells like a tire factory and starts chipping and falling apart, but it looks cool. So that's another mistake that I made, and I still make that mistake sometimes, I'll be super honest. I buy stuff that looks cool all the time, that I buy form over function. I think we all do, especially guys. Like, we just like stuff that looks cool sometimes. So I get it, but boy, if I could keep myself from doing that going forward, and if I can avoid, help some of you guys avoid buying based on looks instead of how it works. And the cool thing is Fringe Sport makes some pretty cool looking bumper plates, so you don't have to go without. But if I could, go back in time, I probably wouldn't have bought those Primal Bells. They were kind of expensive. I could have bought like two much better kettlebells for the price of each one of these. And it just was a mistake, lesson learned. Let's move on to the next one. And for the next one, we're gonna stick with Onnit because I was buying stuff right when Onnit came on the scene, right? They had just come out with Alpha Brain. The owner had a podcast, was friends with Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan was part of the owner of the company. I listened to a ton of Joe Rogan back then. I still listen to some now, but not near what I did back in the day. And everything that Onnit came out with, I bought, and including all of their supplements. But I think I mentioned before, that's a story for another podcast, is my past problem with supplements is another mistake. But by the way, short version, supplements don't do jack squat for the most part, other than a couple of them. So don't waste your money. But anyway, I got caught up in the functional fitness craze. So when Onnit first came on the scene, they really pushed kettlebells and mace bells and clubs. And look, if you love training, they're really cool, right? You can do some great training with stuff. Check out the BAMF hammer, by the way. Such a cool implement. I would love to get one in my gym. The reason that I don't have one is that I don't do that kind of training. And that's something that I wanted to kind of mention as far as this, which is I got caught up into a fad. Everybody was doing functional fitness. Everybody was swinging clubs around and out there with who can swing the heaviest mace and who can put the coolest head on the mace and you know, Ryan J. Pitt's design, one of my favorite Instagram pages to follow, one of my favorite booths at Home Gym Con to photograph, and somebody I will probably never buy something from because of this lesson I learned, because I bought a whole bunch of these things. This is the last one that I have. I still use it for some shoulder mobility stuff, but this is a 10-pound club. I had a 10, a 15, a 20, a 25, the four-headed one, which was stupid heavy. I had clubs of all sizes. I had wood Indian clubs. Actually, I still have the wood Indian clubs, but I bought all that stuff. I wasted a ton of money because I got caught up into a training fad. What I should have done is just buy one and see if I like it. And that's the lesson that I learned, and that's the mistake that I made, is instead of going all in on a fad, ice baths. Just gonna leave that out there for you guys. Ice baths, fad. Probably don't spend thousands of dollars on one. But anyway, I'm about to piss people off today, aren't I? Just stay away from the fads. Or if you're gonna do a fad, and these are still around, and you can do some cool stuff with them, buy one, right? What I should have done, the mistake I made is I should have bought one to see if I like it. And then if I liked it, I could have bought another one. But I'm dumb, and I have virtually no control over my finances in a lot of cases, as you can tell by my college credit card story. So be wary of fads. Intermittent fasting. Anyway, let's move on to the next one. I'm just gonna try and poke as many people as I can today. Leave me alone. The next one, and this is one, this is a huge reason why I built GymCrafter. Please do not trust Amazon reviews. I worked in a very large retailer for a very long time, and we sold stuff on Amazon. And I can tell you that the world of Amazon reviews is dirty, sleazy, dishonest, and inaccurate. Inaccurate's probably the best thing that I can say. Verified buyer means nothing, guys. Absolutely nothing. You can sit at a company and place orders under different customer names, or have your cousin order one, have your wife order one. You can pay people to do reviews. I don't know if any of you have got them. I bought stuff from Amazon where I get cards that say, hey, we'll send you a $50 Amazon gift card if you post a 5-star review on this product. Amazon reviews are 1,000% worthless across the board. And if you think about it, almost everything on Amazon now has, you know, hundreds to thousands of reviews, most of which are 4 and 5 stars. Guys, that's not possible. There are too many picky people out there for that many people to give everything 4 and 5 stars. And if you think about it, the people that like stuff don't usually take the time to go on and write a review. The people that don't like stuff definitely do. So just by the nature of looking at the skew between how many 4 and 5 star reviews there are, and like I said, that's why I built GymCrafter in the first place, was because I was doing all this research for my garage gym, and not only were there just terrible articles that just had Rogue and Amazon, but everything was a 5-star review. I didn't know it was good or not. I bought a ton of stuff at first, especially off of Amazon, that got all 5-star reviews, and I was just so disappointed. I wasted so much money buying stuff, even stuff like resistance bands that would snap after a week of using. They're just not worthwhile. They're not worth looking at. And regardless of what Amazon says in the press, that they're fixing them, that they have all these people looking at them, they're just worthless. I think I beat that dead horse enough times, right? So stay away from Amazon reviews. Let's move on to the next lesson. And that last lesson is don't get lured in by complexity over simplicity. Now I've got a specific example in mind, but even when we're looking at, a lot of these all-in-one trainers you see all over social media now, where you've got the Smith machine and the cable machine and the functional trainer and everything all in one unit. And a lot of people go, look, you can do 172 things on this one item. And while that's cool, as I've said many times before, you can do 172 things mediocrely, is that a word? Mediocrely? Anyway, you get the idea. So don't get lured by complexity. The example that really bit me was TRX. When I was looking for a suspension trainer, I knew I wanted a suspension trainer. At the time, I was in the Jay Ferrugia Strength Club, I think it was called. It could have been called something else. It's still going on. It's a cool thing. It's a monthly subscription thing. He sent out programming every month, and he was a huge fan of rings. But rings were too simple. Rings, I can't get good value for $25. I need to get something more fancy, right? More complex. And I bought a TRX instead. And I got to tell you, just a TRX is, in my opinion, is the worst of all the suspension trainers. First of all, it anchors at a single point, so you can't do anything like dips or push-ups because the stupid straps are rubbing on you, and like trying to do dips on a TRX while the straps like hitting you in the head is awful. Also, the straps aren't stationary. They slide in that anchor point. So if you're trying to put your feet in them, the things are sliding around, and as you're doing push-ups, they're sliding up and down, and rings are so much better. And I spent $120 some odd on the best TRX because, again, complexity is better. So could I get the budget TRX for $70? No, I had to buy the fancy TRX for $120 some odd. I wasted $120 some odd. I should have just bought rings. I bought rings a month later. I used the rings exclusively for years and years and years. The stupid TRX is still sitting in a box with a layer of dust on it. I don't like that thing. I'm upset that I bought it, that I spent my money on it, and I'm not surprised that they filed bankruptcy recently because there's just better options for a lot less money. And that's just one example. You tell I'm a little bitter about that one. At the time, I didn't have any money, and $120 was about $110 more than I should have spent on anything. But again, not the best with money, right? I'm better now, but I've learned some hard lessons over the years. But don't favor complexity over simplicity. I think you guys, if you listen to the rack series that I published, I can't wait to get all this stuff out of my gym and get a basic 4 or 6 post rack, probably gonna be a 6 post so I can store weights on it, and a barbell and a bench. And I am gonna be so happy and so sore because I'm gonna come and work out every day, and I'm gonna use that rack every day because I miss it. I miss the simplicity of just training with the basics. And it turns out you can get better results with the basics in a lot of cases. So, am I against cable machines? No. Am I against Smith machines? Depends on what day you talk to me. But overall, if you have a choice of simplicity or complexity, odds are complexity might look cool, but simplicity is probably better for you in the long run. And that's the last of the 7 lessons I have to share. So hopefully at least one of them helped you. They're all things that, as you can tell, cost me money. When I consider a lesson, it's just stuff that made me spend money that I shouldn't have. If you want to talk about spending a lot of money I shouldn't have, talk to me about my radio-controlled car days. You think you spent a lot of money on gym gear. But that's the episode for today. Let me know what you guys think. What are your lessons that you would like people building a home gym to know? What are the mistakes that you made? What are the mistakes that cost you the most money? What are the things that you regret buying where you should have bought something else? What are the things where you bought and then you had to buy another one? I love hearing those stories. As the channel grows, watching you guys' discussion in the comment section is one of my favorite things to do. Even on some nights when I'm eating dinner, I do that instead of watch TV because I really enjoy the stuff that I learned there. I learned more stuff from you than I learned from just about anything else, including my own experiences. So let me know in the comments what the mistakes you make. And that wraps up episode 16 of the GymCrafter podcast. If you watched this long and you haven't hit the like button, hit that like button. Drop a newell bell on it, break the newell bell, and hit the like button at the same time, and away we go. You'll be happy, I'll be happy. You can then buy a better set of dumbbells. And that's it for today. Until the next episode, I'm Tim with GymCrafter.